Welcome back to Windows and Mirrors, a podcast produced by the Division of Equity and Inclusion. In this episode, we have Miguel Godfrey, a fifth-year reentry student who majored and graduated in prelaw here at Cal. In this episode, Miguel talks about his time with Berkeley ROTC, his difficult journey into being readmitted into Cal, and his inspiration to change career paths. This is his story.
I was born in Phoenix, Arizona. I was raised there for 10 years. Very good life. My dad worked at Intel. And then I moved over to the Philippines when I was just about 11 years old and lived there till I was 14. And then moved back to Long Beach, 562, for 8th grade in high school, and then came up to Cal for college.
Nice. So, when you first came here, how did you start off as? What did you start off your major as, wanting to do pre-law?
No, I actually started off my major wanting to do CS, but that was at the request of Army ROTC, the program I was very gung-ho on pursuing throughout my 4 years here at Cal. Originally, I wanted to go to the Naval Academy and was about to go, but as soon as I was introduced to the Filipino community here at UC Berkeley for senior weekend, there was no way I could go anywhere else.
That whole shift was just through your exposure with the Filipino community here at Cal?
Yeah, the shift from computer science to my now current endeavor of pre-law with a focus on immigration and labor law came at the shift of me leaving UC Berkeley. Actually,
okay.
Yeah, the Filipino community was there for support the whole entire time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you explain why you left?
So when I was endeavoring to go through Army ROTC, my first year was amazing. I couldn't continue with the program because my left eye was legally blind, and I had to continue on with eye surgery. I couldn't afford it at that time. So on the onset of my sophomore year, without the push from Army ROTC to do computer science, I just fell out of love with the major, and it sucked. In high school, you're constantly validated with good grades, or at least I was constantly validated with good grades. So when my grades start to slip, I couldn't really pick myself up like I used to, and I was suffering from emotional immaturity at the time. I really didn't know how to be vulnerable with myself, tell people what I was going through, and to ask for help. So my grades really slipped, and it got to the point where I had a 1.7 GPA at the onset of my junior year, and without any financial aid or anything like that, I had to withdraw.
And then how was the process from leaving UC Berkeley and just continuing on with your next steps?
It was very difficult at the time. I really didn't know what to do with myself because before I knew it, I saw myself outside of UC Berkeley without a major or a future to really strive for. And me as a person, I really need to see the end goal to work hard towards it, because I can't just run straight at nothing. So, there I was without a career in mind outside of school, with fees of me trying to pick my grades up from summer school but not really doing as well because I burnt out before I knew it. I had fees of around $2,400, later becoming $3,000, with the fees building up over time for my 2 years outside of Cal. With all of those mountains ahead of me, I really didn't know how I could come back. And I also had negative $800 in my bank account. I had no job because I couldn't work my work-study job anymore. And, there I was, a month late on all my bills and rent. Huge mountain to climb before I came back to Cal, and I was devastated. I went through a deep depression, and it was really hard to go through every single day with all of this weight on me and not knowing how to step forward and get out of it.
So you're good now, right?
Oh my God, yeah. It took me a couple weeks to try to get out of my state because I was such a pessimist during the start of this phase. I truly believed that I had worked as hard as I can. And, with the constant invalidation, I went through my first, like, introduction to nihilism. Like, nothing really matters. Like, I don't know why I should try and put effort into anything. But then, me starting to slowly look up, I realized that all of the loved ones who stand beside me want the best for me. And more than that, I want the best for them. I want to be the best person I could be for them. I still didn't know how I was going to pay everything back to Cal in time to graduate in 4 years. As time passed on, I kind of gave up on the 4-year plan, which, was great. But the first thing I did was to just get a job, was to just get any job, and then just put my nose to the dirt and just, like, work as hard as I can every single day, and hopefully something will happen. So I walked into a restaurant, for privacy concern. I'm not gonna really talk about which restaurant.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I walked into the restaurant. I got the job, and let me tell you, food service sucks. Like, all of the customers are hangry all the time, kind of walking in with a little privilege, and like, it's normal. That's kind of how I acted. So yeah, I just got the job and then worked around 45 hours a week to try and, like, pay off everything. Yeah. The restaurant gave me all the family support that I needed. When I was working there, when I was first working there, they didn't know any of my struggles. Again, I had the hard time of, like, being vulnerable with everything that I was going through. So while my hourly wage paid for the bills, my tips were the little savings I could get to try and get back to UC Berkeley. I had to sneak food sometimes because, working for $15 an hour sometimes doesn't give you doesn't give you a basic livable wage. So when I got caught stealing food, the owner was mad at me, of course. More of just like a slap on the wrist after. But since then, the staff stuck me food every single shift because they realized and they understood the struggle of what it's like to go through. So after they, did this act of kindness, I couldn't leave. It was more of a family that I needed, a more true and honest family where I could actually be like myself, my downtrodden self, and not have to put up a face and feel like welcomed into it.
Wow, that's very beautiful. Like, I would never really expect that from like a service or like a restaurant to have that type of like family oriented morals and ethics.
Neither did I. Honestly, it was a shock.
When did you get readmitted into Berkeley? And
yeah, after I got promoted to manager, started to get paid a little bit more. I started to work on the debt I owed to UC Berkeley, and then after working for a year and a half, I ended up finding my way back by the spring of 2017, and that whole process was unbelievably. When I look back and I saw how sad I was, at the time, I wish that I could just lift the pain. I wish that, there was some way I could shortcut all of this. But in hindsight, realizing that all of the turmoil and the toil that I went through, there is no way I would ever replace any little bit of that whole entire experience. Because when I got promoted to manager, started to talk with the staff more, I realized the people that were helping me and getting me through every single shift were all undocumented, and they let me in on their own toil and turmoil as well. When I realized that it checked my privilege for sure. I realized that there's no way. Yeah, it was a humbling experience. So from then on, after also talking to the owner's son of the restaurant, who was a lawyer, I've since then dedicated my life's purpose to being an immigration lawyer focusing on labor. And, with this new passion, with this new enlightenment about who I am, like what I can do after working there for a year and a half, kind of gaining the confidence back, I've better understood myself and my process so that when I did come back to UC Berkeley, I didn't have a single doubt that I could succeed. And the process of coming back to Berkeley was extremely difficult. A lot of paperwork, trying to apply to get readmitted and everything like that. But the whole process was lifted by the help of EOP, the Educational Opportunity Program here at UC Berkeley. And even though it was such an arduous hike to get over this mountaintop, it was well worth the whole entire experience.
Miguel is currently applying to law school and is continuing to pursue his dream as an immigration lawyer. This has been another episode of Windows and Mirrors. I am your host, Gabriel Gonzalez, and thanks for listening.